Hi, I'm Declan Conroy, editor of Food Chemical News, and I'm talking with J.R. Pegg, who is our reporter on genetically modified foods. Hi, J.R.
Hi, Declan.
You tuned in to a hearing on the Hill yesterday. Can you say what transpired?
Yeah, certainly. So yesterday there was a hearing in a House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on a GM food labeling bill that has been introduced by Representatives Mike Pompeo, who is a Kansas Republican, and G.K. Butterfield, who is a Democrat from North Carolina. And this bill, which has lots and lots of industry support and was in many ways based upon a proposal put out by the Grocery Manufacturers Association, would preempt states from moving forward with any of their own GMO food labeling initiatives, and would set sort of a national federal standard for voluntary labeling. And the hearing certainly showed that there is pretty strong bipartisan support, at least within that committee, and I think within the House, for this bill.
Uh-huh. And meanwhile, there is, on another track, the state of Vermont is moving ahead with GMO labeling.
Certainly, and that is certainly what is driving this push on the Hill for a federal bill. There's no question the food industry is very concerned about Vermont's law, which is set to go into effect next year. Unlike the other two state GM labeling laws that have been passed by states, by Maine and Connecticut, Vermont's law doesn't require anyone else to act. They can go it alone, and they're ready to do that.
You mean it does not depend on other states jumping on the train, so to speak, and making this a similar requirement?
That's certainly correct. No one else has to act. Vermont can just go and do their thing.
Okay. And what is the status in Vermont of it's a legal challenge?
It certainly is. So GMA filed, and some other food industry groups filed a lawsuit almost immediately, once the bill was signed into law. And that case has been proceeding through district court. There was a ruling about 2 months ago, I believe, when the judge rejected GMA's request for a preliminary injunction. The plaintiffs were keen to see the law blocked from implementation until the court case was concluded, but the judge said no. That has been appealed to the Second Circuit as well, so the case now sort of is on two tracks. The district court is still considering the big lawsuit, while the Second Circuit is also going to consider whether or not the judge made an error when she denied the program. I think the food industry wants the issue taken off the table from a state perspective. They want a bill that steps in and says the states can't do this. And if there's just a federal voluntary standard, then they know what rules to play by.
And in the States and elsewhere, what's driving the move towards GM labeling?
That's actually an interesting question, because there is certainly a push from groups who present themselves, as right-to-know groups. They say that consumers have the right to know that there are GMOs in their food and then make their purchasing decisions based on that. Opponents of mandatory labeling will say, look, we already have non-GMO certification regimes, and we also have organic regimes, so people who are really interested in finding foods that don't have GMOs in can already get them. I think if you talk to the industry, and certainly at the hearing yesterday there was quite a bit of talk about this, is that there is a feeling that this drive for GM labeling is really being pushed by a small, vocal, enthusiastic group of activists who are in many ways really interested in promoting organic foods and just don't really like GMOs.
Okay. And what's the next thing that we can expect on this?
Yeah, I think there'll be some more movement in the House. One thing we didn't mention earlier, but while there is momentum in the House, there's no bill in the Senate. So I don't think Congress is going to have any big action on this in any time soon. But I think the bill will start to move in the House. I think there'll be more hearings there. But I think the courts are really where we need to pay attention. The next rulings coming out of Vermont, out of the district court, whether or not the Second Circuit reverses the decision on the preliminary injunction, that's where we need to be putting our attention for sure.
Okay, so this is permanent employment for reporters and for legal counsel.
It certainly is. I think if you're a GMO lawyer or someone who likes to report on this, it's not a bad time to be doing that.
Okay, good. Well, we'd be delighted to check back in with you as this story moves forward.
That sounds great. Thanks so much.